Hello and welcome to this chess endgame review entitled Activate Your Rooks, which is very important in rook endgames, but sometimes it is difficult to get yourself to activate your rook, especially when you may have to give up a pawn in the process. And you might want to hold on to that material, and I'm guilty of this as well. But in this example, we'll show how sometimes when you activate your rooks, or probably most of the time, you have to give up a pawn in order to do so. All right, so in this position, what would you do with white to move here? It looks like the material's even at this moment, but white has this passive rook, which is not doing much, just protecting the a3 pawn and also preventing this rook from checking on b2. But this is limited, this bishop, or excuse me, this rook here on a2. So take a look at the position and try and figure out what you would do here. Pause the video if you need to. If not, I will turn on the analysis. All right, and the evaluation. Okay, we see in this position that rook to c2 by white is the best move, which would activate this rook by bringing it to an open file here, and it would also leave this a pawn unprotected, which could be captured by the rook on b3. So now if instead the rook is not activated and white just plays f takes g6 here, well, then the game could proceed like this. The king recaptures, and if we look at the evaluation, once again the computer wants rook to c2, activating this rook. But if white just plays passively with king to e2, kind of moving around to see what black will do, and if black goes to reposition the king towards the center and white continues to play passively, then possibly e5 could be played, and the king will make its way into a better position, the black king, and now this passed pawn in the center could be an issue, especially if white just moves back and forth passively here. And this rook here is doing more of a job, a little more active than this passive rook on a2. So black's rook keeps the white king back, restricted here, and the black king moves into the position, and there's this passed pawn. And another possibility is if the king moves back to e2, black could try and move in here and capture this h pawn. So we see that also with the evaluation, white is behind here by over a pawn's worth of material, and that's not the best way to go here. So if we go back to the beginning and activate the rook with rook to c2 here, now the best move for black is to capture this pawn on f5, and then we would have a recapture. But this f pawn and h pawn do a good job of keeping the black king from infiltrating into the position here, because the h pawn covers the g5 square and the f pawn covers this g6 square. So the king would have to maneuver up and around to get into the position. But here we have an option. The rook will have to capture here, which if we go back, it looks like that was the best move to keep black ahead in this position. So rook captures, and now the best move is activating this rook even more, moving to c6, where we fork these two pawns. Although this one is protected, if this rook moves off to capture this b pawn, then the a6 pawn may be captured. And we're also threatening to capture here with a check. So the king would move up to protect this pawn, and here rook to c7 check, and the king would move. We could just move this rook back and forth, just checking and leading to a possible draw if the white rook just goes back to c6, attacking again, and the king would just come back down to protect this pawn. So that is one way the game could go. Well, here I'll continue on. Rook to c6, rook to g7, rook to c7. So just continuing on like that. But another possibility would be, once this rook checks, is for the king to move up here to f8. And now the king will try and move into the center here. So then we could have capture going after this pawn. The white rook captures the other pawn. And so we just have a series of exchanges that will lead to a draw in this position, as they both have passed pawns. And so after more exchanges, now white has these two passed pawns here, but black has this passed pawn, and so that pawn must be stopped, but it gives white time to push his pawns as well. And this is very interesting. If the pawn queens and capture, now black is not able to stop both of these pawns here. And so amazingly enough, black will have to give up his rook for this pawn here. As he could block, but then the king would come up and protect the pawn, and he would have to capture the pawn eventually. So that is one possible way that this endgame could play out. But if we go back, we'll go back to the beginning just to review everything. So rook to c2, the best move, activating the rook onto an open file where it can shoot up here and start attacking pawns on black's side of the board. So after a capture here, the best move for black, recapture, and a capture of this pawn. Now the rook activates up here on c6. The king would protect, check, and if the king moves, the rook goes back, protecting the pawn again. But another possibility is to not protect this pawn and instead go to b3 here. But then we see after capture, further capture, and another capture, even though black is ahead of pawn, this pawn will be restricted by this rook here behind it. So rooks belong behind pawns. That's where they can have the most efficiency by trying to stop a passed pawn or help promote one of their own pawns by getting behind it to protect it or to attack an enemy pawn. All right, so a check here, and after the king moves, this pawn is able to be pushed forward, but now white moves here to attack, and the game may continue with this. Now we have both pawns being attacked, And the game would most likely just end in a draw here, as this black rook is protecting the outside passed pawn here and restricting the king from moving forward. This rook is protecting this pawn. The valuation is dead even. And so, before the video goes on too long, I hope you enjoyed that little chess endgame review of activating your rooks. So very important in rook endgames, and rook endgames can be a little more complicated than they look. But if you activate your rooks, even sometimes at the expense of giving up a pawn, you may be able to hold a draw or even obtain some advantage. But remember to activate your rooks in rook endgames. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.